How is everybody doing today? The QR code on the lower left is for our workbook, which is just a kind of an interactive thing so you can score where you're at and come up with your next steps. All right, let's go ahead and get going. So, I've been helping small businesses grow for over 25 years and have been targeted in the landscape industry for the last 16. I am an active member of NALP, WALP, OLCA, and CLCA. Regular speaker at industry events. I've got 14 patents issued and 22 pending. My expertise, which we're here to talk about, is SEO. I'm ranked 109 in the world on Moz out of a community of 536,000 members. We've helped six of our clients achieve a buyout or exit. And normally, turnover rate for clients is 24 to 48%. Ours is less than 7% since 2009. We have developed a series of tools. We're a full service agency and we work with your business based on where you're at to use the right tools for digital marketing to gain more visibility and customers. And we do that by obviously increasing your visibility, getting people that engage to convert into customers and sales. And then we're always kind of measuring and improving what we do to do a better job. So we're gonna work on local search today. This is one of my favorite areas just because it can cause such dramatic results for people. And the results are in SEO terms, the results are relatively quick. It's not necessarily the same day, but it's fairly quick that you can see changes if you focus on this area. We're going to talk about what local search is and why it matters, how Google and other search engines decide who shows up, what kind of drives the consumer to call one company or another, and how to show up for the services and areas that you actually want. And then we're going to help you avoid some mistakes. So when somebody does a search on Google and all other search engines, up to 40% of the ranking factors, which is like they have 65 ranking factors. And out of those 65 ranking factors, 40% is geographic relevance or how close you are to the client. And as you improve your local search and define your service areas, you'll start showing up as somebody that's geographically relevant to your customers more and more. Basically, this is heavily driven by your Google business profile, local directories, and other local factors. And oftentimes people will click directly to you without even going to the website now. And so it's really important that we get this set up right, and hopefully the information is going to help you. So where you want to be on local is in what's called the map pack, and you want to be one of these top three businesses. And that's who's going to get the most calls. And factors that you want to look at is you want to have your name, rating, reviews, and photos show up. And, again, as I said, people can call directly, but and this, website's still part of the picture, but this is often the first impression. And, again, especially, you know, many of us have experienced a few years ago where people were booked up sometimes for 6 months or even a year. Things have changed. People are looking for all their options and trying to get the best value, and they're thinking about their decisions more. And you want to be one of the businesses they call. And the first three businesses is often who they call. So you want to show up there as much as possible. And you want to get there and not have your competitors be there. This also, by the way, drives AI search as well, or it's one of the factors. So how do we, who gets to show up? So first of all, the relevance of, you know, your company's categories is going to factor. So an example of that is we have a client in Ohio that they have a nursery, landscaping nursery and garden center. They added amendments like rock and soil and amendments, and they were frustrated because other companies that actually had started out sooner were showing up on the amendments in rock higher than they were. And the reason for that is that the categories that we're going to talk about in a minute, they'd chosen to show up as a garden center or nursery, and the others were just focused on the soil and amendments and rock. And so essentially, because the others, their primary business category was the rock and soil and amendments, they showed up first, where the other garden center, which was much stronger on SEO as a whole, did not show up first. And so it's really important that you think about your categories and then obviously how close you are to who's searching. One of the things I've done for clients is I've actually driven around towns and done searches to see kind of where they show up. And you can do the same thing yourself. One of the one of the common scams that people in digital marketing will do is they'll set somebody up at their address and then say, "Hey, see, you're number one." Well, of course, they're number one because they're at the physical address that is, in the profile. And so, proximity matters. As you get a stronger presence online and build up your reputation, that proximity window increases. Prominence or trust online is important. A lot of people will call that domain authority, or it's like your reputation on the web. As that improves, you're going to show up more. And so what you can control, can't change there's no altering way to alter the universe and change your address when it makes sense. So you have to choose the right categories for your service. You want to fill out every section of your profile with no gaps or typos. We're going to talk more about it, but you want to get more reviews. If you add like 20 to 30 photos, you can increase your visibility online by 2 to 300%. And adding those photos regularly is really important. You want to have accurate hours and contact info, and you want to link your social profiles to your Google business profile and other online assets. And so here is kind of what Google and the other search engines check. And just kind of in the back of your head, you can think of it this way. So Google is the primary search engine out there. And then there is Bing, which is smaller, like 5% of the market of searches, but they tend to have higher income people on there. So they're worth paying attention to. And literally, we're going to talk about in a minute, the Bing profile can mirror the Google profile. So it's like really important that you kind of think about both. And then Bing is the search engine, and the Bing Places is the profile that everybody but Google uses. So like Bing and DuckDuckGo and some of these other search engines uh, use it, and they're all checking these things. So they want to look at your categories, the services you list, the review count you have, and your star rating, how old or new the reviews are, how often you add photos. Um, you want to post updates. We recommend at least weekly. You want to manage your status of when you're open and closed. And you want to, in all our presentations, we talk about the name, address, and phone number, and you want that to match. So everything between the website and the Google business profile needs to match. You also want to make sure that you're showing up for the right searches, and I kind of referred to that a little earlier. You may do many things, but you really only have one primary category, and you can set secondary categories, but you really need to think about that primary category. And so you want to have a category that reflects your core services, and you want to basically decide if you want to be broad, like landscape contractor, or if you want to be more specific. One trick that we recommend is you can actually look at your main competition's primary category and then basically mirror that if you want to get their traffic. Or the other is you could be more specific if you want a subset. So for example, if you're doing hardscaping, technically you are a landscape contractor, but you might want to be hardscaping. Or if all your competitors are hardscapers, but you really want to focus on outdoor living, you may want to have that as your category. So even though it's less traffic, you could potentially dominate that one area. And so, think long and hard and really be strategic about your primary category. And again, on search, the more broad you are, the more competitive it is to show up, and the more targeted you are, the more likely you are to show up. And then more importantly, clients, the more relevant you are to their search and targeted on that, the more likely it is that they're going to click through or call you. You want to look at, the categories in the top 10 businesses in your area and kind of think about it and see if that's the best match for you and if those are the searches you want to show up on. And if again, if you want the same searches, pick the same category, or if you want to be more targeted, pick one that really matches you. And then secondary categories. So you've got your primary, which is kind of where you're like, this is my main focus. And then you can add all these secondary categories. And the temptation is to add everything in there, but you don't want to go above six. If you go above six, it's going to confuse Google and the other search engines. And again, think strategically about those six categories because those are kind of the secondary searches you're going to show up with. You want to list your services in detail and you want to add every service you offer. So this is not your category, this is your services. And there you can list everything. And then one of the things we do and you can do is it doesn't matter what you call the service, it matters what the person searching calls the service. So kind of think of it as like a pitcher and a catcher. Somebody typing in the search is the pitcher, and then you want your Google business profile and your website to be the catcher of that search. And you want to have each service have a description. And then kind of a new thing is customers more and more are wanting transparency on pricing. So where possible, give a price range. That will help you on search. It will also help you with AEO, with the AI searches, and it's going to help you with conversion with customers. So we're going to set your service area. You want to obviously think about where those services areas are, and you want to put in the specific cities and neighborhoods that you serve. Don't like less is more again on something like this. Don't set like everywhere is your service area. It's better to have specific areas that you can provide services to, and a tighter service area is better than a wide one. Like the wider it is, the more diluted it is, and the weaker your profile is. So Bing places, I would say more than 95% of people don't even know to do this. This is a way you can get an edge, and Bing places is what's going to help you show up on the search engines that are not Google. So that's not just Bing, it's all the other non-Google search engines. The other thing that I think is really interesting is Microsoft partnered with ChatGPT early on And Microsoft Copilot's their own AI tool, and they pull all their answers from Bing. So basically, your Bing listing directly affects your visibility in both ChatGPT and Microsoft Copilot. All you need to do to set this up is go to bing.com/, for business and import your Google business profile. One trick is you can turn on auto sync so that changes to Google update Bing automatically. And then I don't know, I probably should have put some asterisks or something to indicate curse words. I don't know about you guys. I have a love-hate relationship with Yelp, but you want to claim your listing and make sure it matches the other platforms. Yelp is a strong driver on search as far as the search engines look at that. And this is the Yelp reviews. We all get really frustrated with their filtering system, but what that does is those reviews carry some real weight. And so you want to be active on Yelp. You want to respond to Yelp reviews right away. You want to actively try to get Yelp reviews. And one trick you can look at, which you know is technically not okay, is you can set up a Yelp account for yourself and use the friend finder, and you can put in email addresses for people that are clients, and it'll come up with how much they review on Yelp. And if somebody is reviewing on Yelp, you want to, on a regular basis, they won't be filtered out. And you want to be sure to approach them for review. And when they say yes, give them that Yelp link. It's really, really important. I would say so search weights reviews. So the first thing is you want to have work towards having as many or more Google reviews as your competitors. And then a back door is most people just ignore Yelp. If you focus on Yelp reviews, like one Yelp review is worth 5 or 10 times what one Google review is worth. So if you build up your Yelp reviews, that's going to really help your overall visibility on search. Okay, this is a new one. This just came out a couple weeks ago. My company has worked to get people on Google Maps for years. And it's been kind of a long and winding road and difficult, and we've been able to do it, but there hasn't been a straightforward way to do it. Apple just launched Apple One, and you can set up your business, or whoever's working with you can set up your business and get you on Google Maps, or sorry, Apple Maps. And that goes to more than half of phone users, so all the Apple guys out there. And it also, if people are using Siri and CarPlay to map where they're going to go, Apple Maps powers that. So you want your business to show up. And you just sign into business.apple.com to claim your location. And they're going to be launching paid advertising on Apple as well. So kind of stay tuned for that. But this is a real opportunity. Most of your competition isn't even going to have any idea that you can do this. So this is like a super good thing to do. All right, so there's something called outside directories or referring directories. Some people call them local directories. It's things like obviously your Google and Bing profile, your Apple Business Connect, and your Yelp. But it's also things like your Chamber of Commerce and BBB and Nextdoor and House and all these different platforms. Those are called local referring directories. The more that you have signed up, the better you are. Our company ends up signing up our clients for about 106 directories by the time we're done setting those up. And that all strengthens your profile and strengthens the visibility of your website and just generally improves your search. And some really good directories that give you credibility with the customer base, and because they're a .org, is going to help you is things like WALP or OLCA or CLCA, NALP, which is the National Landscaping Association, Lawn and Landscape, Irrigation Association, International Society of Arborists, Tree Service Near Me, all these platforms get you more and more visibility. So one thing you want to do on the web, especially if you've been around for a while and haven't focused on local search, you want to really spend some time working on your NAP, your name, address, phone number. You want to make sure that it matches because if it mismatches, it's almost like mixing oil and water. It basically makes your visibility overall suffer. So, go throughout everything online is showing up for you. We recommend that you even copy and paste the info so you don't accidentally do a typo. Okay, so what makes somebody pick you? And so, homeowners or businesses, we need to look at your star rating. So the overall number of stars. The other thing people look at is the number of views of you versus somebody else. One thing as a side note on the reviews, you want to respond to all of them. You especially want to respond to any negative reviews in a professional and neutral way. Like, I think all of us know that there's knuckleheads out there that are going to, say something bad no matter what. But it's really important that, you know, you respond to those reviews even more than regular ones because what consumers really want to know is what management is doing and like how you address the issue if there was one and kind of what you did in response to that and frankly whether you behave professionally if something bad happens and you want to get reviews often. One thing I will recommend is what's called an NFC card or near field communications card. The brand I know is called Zappy Card, and you can upload your review link to these. And when the consumer or business says, "Hey, I'd like to write a review," or they agree to a review, you can tap their phone and the review screen comes right up. I've had people dramatically increase their reviews by doing that. You want to have photos of your work and you want to show that you respond quickly because that's going to make them more likely to call you. And then essentially, you want to have steady new reviews. You want to respond to those reviews. And again, 65% of consumers look at review before they make a decision. And again, on the negative reviews, it's not the end of the world. In fact, if you don't have any negative reviews, many customers will think that you're somehow gaming the system or doing something, nefarious. So, one or two negative reviews, while not great overall, it's not going to kill anything, and it actually makes your other reviews more credible. And so, definitely, if the customer is happy, you want to get a review request to them right away, give them a direct link to the Google review page. And going back to what I said earlier, if they happen to be Yelpers, you want to give them a link to Yelp and train your crews to mention reviews before they leave the job site. Many companies will actually give people a small, like $25 or $50 bonus for every review. And then you, as a business, want to respond right away with a real reply. So photos, as I said earlier, will increase your overall search rate rankings. So it's just good to have a solid base of photos. You want to always be loading more photos, and you want to really show your work here. And you also, although this presentation isn't about it, on your website, blogs or pages talking about projects and having photos throughout all the stages. And they're not like looking at those photos because they want to do the work. They're looking at those photos to see what you can do. So you want to before and after pairs are awesome. You want to do hardscape close-ups. this is more and more important. When you're smaller, it's good to have branding or branded shirts because it makes you look more credible. And as you're larger, branding on your trucks and your shirts and everything else is going to help customers feel safer doing work with you. A way you can work, think about it, is the smaller the transaction, like if it's $100 or $500 or whatever, people are probably not going to really stress about who they deal with. But somebody that's going to do that, 20 or 50 or 100,000, quarter million, $1 million project, kind of the higher the risk to the consumer, the more they want to see that branding, they want to see your projects and credibility and know that you know what you're doing. So stock photos are a no-no. When Google sees them, they kind of look at it as duplicate content. And even if they're not beautiful or perfect, right? Real photos from your business is kind of seen as legitimate and active. And then the other thing I like is people buy from people. So you want to have photos with your team in it. So this is, tied to local as well, your website. And so essentially you want to have the website's contact information match your Google business profile. Again, that's the name, address, phone number. You want to have your services match. And preferably, in my opinion, you want to have pages for all your service categories. You want to, there's something called long-tailed keywords. The more specific and descriptive you are, the better. And you want to include the geographic locations of where you perform the services. And so, again, if your top area for mowing is Springfield, you might want to, include that in the phrasing on the page because that's like a 40% weight. And so you want to have those service areas on the website. And then you want to have obviously a fast, easy to use website. So you want to have something for every service. You want to have city and service area mentioned. You want to have your contact info match Google. Photos, just like your Google business profile, are very important. Most up, between 68 and 88% of your potential leads are using a phone. And so you want to have it look good on a phone. You want to have a fast lead time. First, nobody, and it's like not nobody, but very few people stay on top of their business hours. And when that doesn't match, customers get really frustrated. Slow response times. So one of the things that our clients use is we do missed call text back. So when somebody calls, if you don't pick up, text back with when you're going to get back to them. And you also, in many cases, you can sync your calendar and send them back a link that they can actually schedule their own callback time. Thinking about kind of how you get that customer responded to and how quickly you can do it and what you can do to get them to not keep going down the list. So, helping them schedule a callback, giving them assurance of when you're going to call back. The other thing we will often do is we'll set it up so that when you pick up the phone, it texts back with a channel that customers can text you on if they don't want to talk via phone later on. We also use AI receptionist. We personally recommend not using them to get, spell out their name or the phone number because that like basically outs it as AI. Really what you want is an AI that picks up the phone and says, "Hey, I'm taking notes for so and so. What services you're looking for?" The simpler the better, and you want that transcript to be emailed or texted to you. And again, you want your info to match. If it doesn't, it's going to cost you leads. Like a lot of times people won't have the same phone number across all their online items. And or change their phone number and people try to call and they can't get through. That's a pretty easy way to lose leads. And again, on the profiles, I can't express enough how important it is to update those photos. And, it's crazy. And I think this is because we've had so much abundance for several years. I can't tell you how many people will get all these leads and never follow up, or they'll follow up, at the end of the day, or even some people are 2 days or even a week later, and then they wonder why the lead's no longer good. If you don't get back to the client within 5 minutes, your close ratio on a lead goes down. I think it's like 80%. It's a huge number. The thing that's kind of new now is Google is getting more and more kind of reaching into businesses to verify things. They've actually got now AIs that will call your business and test to make sure you're open during the hours. And so you want to, not just for customers, but for search, you want to make sure those hours are accurate and the times you're open and closed are clearly marked. And, we really, I think, talked about this, but, you need to respond within 5 minutes. If you miss calls and don't respond, clients see that as poor service now. You want to have messaging enabled on your profile if people want you to get to them and don't want to call. And again, automation is a great way to improve that response time and speed to lead. Google and other search engines in about a 20th of a second, they have to look at all the businesses in an area and decide who shows up. And they crawl all the websites and they crawl all the business profiles and make notes and compare things. And, to give you kind of a scale of what they're comparing is, there's 600 over 650,000 landscapers in the country. Within your state, there's a minimum probably of 15 or 20,000 landscapers. Within your city, it can be up to 1,000 landscapers. And they have to decide who shows up on each search. And so they really have to, on advertising, we call it negative keywords. So we literally, when we advertise for someone, we put in all the competitors that we don't want to show up on their, as an ad above their name. We have to put them in as negative keywords. Google and the other search engines are kind of doing the same thing. They want to show up, they want to show things that are relevant to the people searching. And so if you're not adding photos, if you're not posting updates, if you're not responding to reviews, and if you're not answering questions, basically Google just filters you out because they're like, oh, this company's not serious. This company here is much more serious. Look at how much they're updating things. That is one of their ranking factors, and it will negatively impact you if you don't pay attention. All right, so let's talk about what to do next. Let's start with the basics. And again, we're going to give you a chance to scan the workbook at the end again. But in the workbook, we have all this stuff as kind of a checklist. So you want to check your primary and secondary categories. You want to update your hours and add any upcoming holidays. You want to upload some project photos, send review requests to at least 10 customers. And then again, start verifying your name, address, and phone match across all your top listings. So the first week is maybe audit your profile and fix your categories. Maybe next week, a week later, you refresh your photo library and start asking for reviews after every job. Maybe in 3 weeks, you review your website service pages and local references and add to that if needed. And then set up a routine for posting, responding to reviews, and adding photos. Like make it part, getting those reviews, adding photos, setting up posts, just make it part of your process. And you want to track how many people are looking at your profile, calls and direction requests, are people taking action? You want to look at all your competitors and you want to work towards having as many reviews as the top one and eventually having more reviews, you want to look at the terms that are triggering searches to your profile, and you want to check your Google business profile for these insights every week. So, local search is where most homeowners and businesses find customers. We have a client, and if you go to the Landscape Business Growth Lab podcast, we had a recent interview with a guy, Mike Ryan, who's relatively small. He just did a quarter million last year, and he's going to do about 400,000 this year. And the big uptick for him was that he started showing up, his website and his Google business profile started showing up on searches related to commercial landscaping. And so part of his big boost is he's now showing up for people outside the area that don't know the local landscaping businesses that have commercial properties they need to maintain. So you want to, again, this helps with consumers, but it also helps with commercial and business. So you want to show up on those searches. Again, understand the profile is one of your most important online assets. You really want to think about your primary business category. That's like a huge, it's almost like your business name. Like it's something you're going to live with for a while. So you want to really think about what and yeah, you can change it, but you really, the more thought you put into that, the better, because it really does affect you. And again, those reviews, I, our clients probably feel like we harass them for reviews, but it's because we know that they're so important. And keeping that profile active with updates and photos and things like that is going to make it more visible. And then looking at your speed and accuracy is super important. It really reflects on your organization. Here is the QR code to scan for the workbook. If you haven't done it, we'd encourage you to do that. Okay, well, um, feel free to reach out to us if you want some support on these things. There's a QR code on the screen for a free strategy call, or you can go to Everbearing Services. We have plans and solutions for landscapers of all sizes. We have FieldFlow, which is kind of our simple CRM and marketing automation platform. We've got our growth programs or emergence programs for businesses under a million in revenue. We have programs that will support people as low as like 70 to 120,000 a year in revenue. And then our growth programs really support businesses clear up to, 30 to 50 million a year in revenue. And then, from really a million to 2 million is kind of where the programs start to really be relevant. And then we scale the program based on the size and needs of your business. All right. Well, I really appreciate everyone showing up. I hope you guys have a great day.